Hey guys, it's Ann Yorks from the Flourbox, and I'm excited to be bringing to you a wedding cookie tutorial today. So in this tutorial, I plan to teach you how to make a beautiful wedding gown that has lots of details for folds of fabrics. Then we're going to look at how to make little ribbon rosettes and also a medium-sized rose to accent all of our cookies. After that, I'm going to show you a quick and easy stenciled cookie that would be great for a wedding or a bridal shower. Then we'll take a look at how to make a diamond ring. In this diamond ring, I'm going to show you how to paint on metallic gold accents to give it some beautiful shimmer to it. Then finally, I'm going to create a beautiful bride and groom using the double heart cookie cutter. So let's cookie it up. Let's start with the wedding dress. I'm gonna outline the edge of the cookie with piping icing, and I'm using a tip number 2. And then I'm gonna flood in the dress with a tipless bag, and I'm using a 10-second royal icing. And if you're looking for a recipe on how to make the royal icing, you can find that on flourboxbakery.com. So I'll let that icing dry for about an hour or two in front of a fan, and then I'm ready to add the details. I use our light pink accent color and the burgundy rose rosette, and now I'm ready to pipe the details. I love the look of the white on the wedding dress, and to keep the folds of the dress looking very delicate and to add lots of little detail, I've actually sized down my tip to a tip number 1. I start off piping along the base of the dress to create those beautiful folds, and then I bring some lines down just to create the folds of the fabric that this is a nice full wedding gown. You can certainly do this dress in a variety of ways, but when you add packaging and a ribbon, this is an awesome favor for a wedding or even a bridal shower, and it's one of those cookies that you could make a lot of, especially if it's a large event. Let's make some of those little rosettes. I just put one on the dress that I just decorated. You're gonna need parchment paper, a tip number 101, and a flower nail. This flower nail and this tip come in our new wedding kit that we've just released. And to get started, just get comfortable with that flower nail. I just like to roll it between my fingers just to get the feel of that motion, because there's a little bit of coordination between spinning the flower nail and how hard you're gonna squeeze the icing. Add a little dot of icing to the top of the flower nail, and that'll keep your parchment paper in place. Now we're ready to make our first rose. So I'm using a medium hand squeeze, not too soft, not too hard. I have the narrow side of the tip pointing straight up and the wide side down. This will keep that thin area at the top of the rose. And then as I'm spinning, I'll just use a gentle swipe to finish off that rose. Let's look at that again. Again, a little dot of icing on the top of the flower nail. That'll keep my parchment paper in place. And then I'm ready to turn and squeeze. And I find I need to start turning that flower nail pretty quickly so that I can get that rose spinning. And if you have any icing that's out of place, you can always tap it back into place with your scribe. Sometimes I get little wings on my rosettes. Let's take a look at a medium-sized rose. I'm gonna start off with that small rosette in the center. And then with the narrow side of my tip pointing outward, I'm gonna pipe 3 petals. So I just bump, bump, and swipe. And then I'm gonna bump, bump, and swipe. And then I'll bump, bump, and swipe that 3rd petal into place. And we're gonna use some of these bigger roses on our bouquet cookie coming up in just a little bit. And I love to make them in all different colors because they save for a long time. Now I'm gonna use this double heart cookie twice. This first use is going to be a stenciled cookie. This is our accent cookie in this group. So I have a just married stencil, and I'm going to generously apply the icing to the surface of the stencil. And before I lift the stencil, I just want to remove that excess. By removing the excess, I'll be able to reuse that stencil over and over to make more of these cookies. And I'm just gently peeling back that stencil. I don't want to whip it up. I just want to gently peel that back to reveal the pattern. Now I'm going to add a few piped details, just a little green vine with some roses. So I'm just putting a dot of icing on the bottom of the roses and popping those into place. And then I'll add a few little leaves. I'm just using tip number 2 to add these leaves, a teardrop of icing. And then I'll add the vine down below as well. And now I'm gonna add a rose on the other side with some leaves. And to clean up the edge of this cookie and really make the design of that double heart more evident, I'm gonna add a piped outline to it in white. But it looks a little off balance to me, so I'm gonna actually add one more rose and a few more leaves just to balance out both sides of that design. I think that looks much better with the extra rose. Okay, let's do one of my favorite cookies from this set. This is the diamond ring, and you can find the template for this cookie on the blog post. Just see that link below and you can download the free template. And I used the template to cut out that circle so I could trace it with my yellow food marker. Now I'm gonna outline the circle of the cookie first, and because I'm creating these really thin icing areas, I'm using a thicker 20-second icing. This icing has a little bit of flow to it, but it's really gonna hold its shape so that I can do these delicate areas. And hopefully after putting it in front of the fan, we won't see any craters of icing in those small areas. Now I'm gonna add the diamond, and I'm using a tip number 1. So we wanna keep this area nice and thin and small. And I'm using the guide of the shape of the cookie to create that diamond. You can add a little sparkle to your diamond using jewel dust at this point, but I'm keeping this one free of jewel dust. And then I'll just tap that icing into place and make sure that diamond has a really good shape to it. Now I'm ready to add the gold accent. I'm using the antique gold from Crystal Colors. This is an FDA approved metallic dust, and I have my 5-0 silver white brush. This is an ultra thin brush so that we can keep that gold in those small areas. I'm gonna add a little bit of the antique gold dust to my little mixing bowl, and then I have a little bit of alcohol that I'm mixing with the antique gold. Now, not everybody has alcohol in their house. You could also use a lemon extract or water, but I find that the alcohol works best. It leaves behind the best shine because it evaporates. You won't taste it. It just evaporates once that liquid dries on the cookie. So I mix it up, and I tap my brush off on the side just to remove any excess, and then I'm ready to start painting that little area. Now this cookie is definitely more of a feature cookie. Adding these gold accents is time consuming, and so that's why I like to mix some of these more time consuming cookies in with the stenciled cookies. It really helps me to balance out my decorating time so that not everything is super labor intensive. But I love how the gold looks on the diamond ring, so it's worth the extra effort for me. Now I'm almost done, and I'll go back in. If I see any missing areas, I'll touch it up. Sometimes I'll find that I'll need to add a second coating if things aren't as bright as I want them to be. So I'll just touch up any areas while the gold is still wet. Now let's add our finished details. I'm gonna start with the diamond, and I just section off that top area first and then pipe an outline to finish off the bottom area. I'm gonna add a guide dot, and that'll help me pipe the facets of the diamond at the top. And then I'll add 3 more lines at the bottom just to give this a pretty gem look. And I'm gonna add a couple of our roses to our diamond. So I'll just lay them out on the side there next to the diamond while I pipe some of these little green vines. I kind of want this peeking out underneath those flowers. So I'm gonna pipe them first, and then I'll put my roses in place. Those little vines are great. They're just a little teardrop of icing that it's a good squeeze, and then I pull it out, easing off the hand pressure. And I'm just getting those little roses in place. I'm gonna add a couple of leaves to fill in the gaps and fill out that design. And that beautiful cookie favor is ready to go. Let's take a closer look at the cookie decorating kit that we have to go with this tutorial. In addition to the cutters and the Just Married stencil, there's some cool tools that are in this kit. First of all, to make painting those metal accents a little bit easier, we have an ultra thin 5-0 silver white brush. This is my favorite brush to use when I'm painting those metallic accents. And then we have a small jar, a 1/2 ounce of the antique gold crystal color. And I love this product because it is FDA approved. Then for making your icing flowers, we have a Wilton flower nail and the tip number 101. So that's what we're gonna be including in the kit. Plus you'll find a sample pack of our tipless bags, and of course, we can't send out a kit without a boo-boo stick. Check out the link below for more details on this cookie decorating kit, and you'll also be able to download our free templates. Now, let's make the bouquet. I have my apple tree cookie, and I'm gonna use this apple tree to make our wedding bouquet. It just happens to be the perfect shape for a bouquet and a gathering of stems. And I always like to plan out my flowers ahead of time. So before I glue them on, I'll space them out and make sure I like how the flowers are organized, and then I'll go and add the little dot of icing to put them into place. So we're gonna use a combination of flowers. I used our rosettes, and to add a different texture, I'm also gonna do some little whimsical flowers, and I'm piping them in a couple of different icing colors. Those are really just a squiggly circle. There's no secret to that. They're pretty quick and easy. And then I'll add some detail to them using a tip number 1, and I'll just wiggle and squiggle my way around to get those flowers to have a little bit of extra detail. Now before we fill in the top, I'm going to add our stem. I have a tip number 1.5 on my avocado colored icing, and I'm just gonna pull those lines straight down from the gathering of the bouquet. And I don't always match up the number of stems to the number of flowers, but I like that area to be nice and full of green lines. I just think it looks like a lot of fun. Now I'm ready to add some baby's breath, and I'm using that same gold icing that we used on our diamond ring. And this will just tie all of our icing together from cookie to cookie. I'm just piping those in small clusters of 3 dots. And now I'm ready to fill out the rest of that design by adding leaves. And I have my number 2 tip back on the avocado icing. And you can see I'm just giving a good squeeze and pulling out those leaves. So it's good hand pressure and then a release just to get those thick and thin areas of the leaf. I try to add 1 leaf to each, and I really just want to fill in that negative space and give that bouquet a really nice full look to it. If I think I need to add another flower or 2, I can always fill in the space with some extra flowers. I'll just lean back and look at the overall design and decide whether I need to add in another little flower. And then before I'm done, I'm just gonna pipe a cute little infinity bow. I just pipe a line across, 2 loops at the top, and then I'll squiggle down the tails of the ribbons. Here's that double heart cookie again, and this time this is going to be one of our feature cookies. We're gonna create a bride and a groom, and you can see that I've traced some guides on the cookie with yellow food marker. And you can find the template for this cookie design on the blog post. It's just a 1-click, and you can download all the templates from this video. So whenever I have a cookie that has multiple icing areas and I'm trying to decide which area should I flood first, I like to think background to foreground. So because that bride is in the foreground, I'll flood the black tuxedo first, just to keep that behind the white of the bride heart. I'm using a 20-second icing for the bust area of the bride. And again, that icing is thin enough that it has some flow to it, but it's thick enough that it'll hold its shape so that I can pipe and flood all with one icing bag. Then once those areas have a chance to dry, I'm gonna go back in and I'm ready to flood the white. You definitely wanna allow at least an hour of drying time in front of the fan so that you don't see any color bleeding between the black and the white icing. Now it's time for details. I'm gonna start with the tuxedo first. I'll outline the V just to clean up that area between the shirt and the jacket. And then I'm going to just pipe the lapels. So the lapels are just a line. I'll cut in a little triangle and then I'll bring another straight line down to the bottom. You could also flood that area if you wanted to, but I think the piped line gets the point across and it doesn't add too much extra time to an already time-consuming cookie. Then I'll finish off by piping the details of the shirt, and that tuxedo area is pretty much ready to go. I'm gonna add a beautiful decorative bead border to the top of the bride dress, and then I wanna create the illusion that this dress is made of beautiful lace. And so I'm gonna do a simple squiggle lace. I have a tip number 1 on my icing bag, and I'm using very light hand pressure to keep these nice and thin wiggles delicate. And then I just squiggle in and around the dress, just filling in that whole icing area with those beautiful little squiggles and adding a really nice texture to that cookie. And before we finish up this side, I'm just gonna add pretty dots of icing, and that'll be for the bride's necklace. Now let's finish off our groom. I'm gonna add some buttons to his shirt. And I switched over my black icing to a tip number 65S. And it's typically a leaf tip, but in this case, we're gonna use it as a bow. That way we don't have to pipe and flood such a small area. And I'll just use strong hand pressure as I squeeze the icing to create each side of the bow, meeting that icing in the middle and adding a dot. Now we're almost done with this cookie. I'm just gonna add a rose to his lapel and a quick leaf. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching today's tutorial. This one was a lot of fun to plan out. Again, check out that link to the blog post below for extra tips on icing colors, downloading the templates, and more details about the wedding cookie decorating kit. As always, thanks for watching. I would be flattered if you recreated these cookies, so tag me on social media, either at Flourbox Bakery or hashtag Flourbox Bakery. And until next time, happy decorating!